Hey guys, I guess I'm the only one here right now. So this is going to be a more serious test, plus accompanied by more serious material on a pertinent subject, which I hope many of you will enjoy and it'll get a lot of you thinking about certain things. So before we get started, let me just see on my other device if this thing is properly started or not. Just give me a second. Yeah, I think we are doing pretty well. The only thing is that uh, the background image is a little bit off, but that doesn't really matter. It's a placeholder image, anyways. I hope you guys can bear with me as I go about, figuring out different tricks with regard to all this funny new, streaming software. Anyways, guys. So as you can read the title, the stuff that we're going to talk about today. Some of you may be familiar with this term. It's a term called techno-feudalism. So techno-feudalism is basically this idea that with the advent of big tech companies which a lot of them are essentially monopolies at this point. Think of, let's say, Google, right? Like, you might have heard like a lot of famous people say this again and again, that Google is the number one search engine because no one really wants to use the second best search engine, right? Like you it's a pretty obvious, it's a pretty natural monopoly uh, which would occur. So similarly, you'd have something like, let's say, Windows, right? I mean, it's not exactly a monopoly, but for a very rich people and like the upper middle class people in first world countries, right? So Apple has a relatively much smaller share of the market. So essentially, even Microsoft has a monopoly, and there are like numerous examples like that, right? So what essentially happens is that uh, as you keep on moving towards a world where tech is eating up everything, because they're essentially making everything more and more efficient, and they're getting, once they've, let's say, captured and almost maxed out whatever efficiency they could in a particular space, they move on to the next thing, the next big gold mine, right? Which they think is lucrative. So, for example, look at how companies have tried to get into fintech, right? That's a pretty good example right there. So, for example, you've seen that as soon as UPI really kind of got off the ground, all these companies. So Google came in first, guns blazing, offering all these rewards and discounts and whatnot. And then you had, a bunch of other companies showing interest: Facebook, WhatsApp, uh, Amazon. Then right now Amazon UPI is active, WhatsApp Pay is active, right? They took their time, but they've expanded into this. There are other companies which have bought, big tech companies which have bought stakes in businesses which are almost entirely unrelated to their core tech tech business, or their core software business where they actually make their profit, right? So they've got their hands in many pies, and because they're so good with data, because they have so many of the world's biggest, best brains, best trained minds, all working under, not exactly working under the same roof, but working under the same setup, collaborating with each other, and almost limitless piles of cash. In a lot of ways, they can just steamroll the competition, right? And we've also seen regulatory capture. If you don't know what that term means, regulatory capture is basically when these big companies essentially gain a certain amount of influence over the people who are supposed to regulate them in these government bodies, and so they end up influencing them to essentially draft regulations which are more or less easy enough, like not easy enough, but like which are not too much trouble for these giant MNCs and multi-billion-dollar corporations to deal with, like these compliances and regulations, but which would essentially make it almost impossible for any new innovator or any new entrant to enter the market and challenge these established business houses there, right? So regulatory capture again has become a very big issue. And so essentially people have been saying that because of all these things, and because of just how capitalism works, capitalism combined with the hyper efficiency and the rise of big tech, it's essentially made this crazy mad machine which is literally eating up the rest of the world, right? And what that means is that, let's say, if there are these 5 or 10 or 20 big massive tech conglomerates which are more powerful than most governments or even banks or international organizations, let alone common citizens like us, right? Doesn't that essentially eventually mean that they have so much monopoly power that they don't have to listen to anyone when it's time to decide what wage you'll get paid, because they'll be controlling most of the jobs, they'll be controlling most of the incomes, they'll be controlling most of where money ends up, what it gets invested in, what gets neglected, what kind of welfare you get, what kind of housing you get. So basically, in that sort of scenario, these people have, there's this term which is used a lot about Russian oil and steel barons, robber barons essentially, I guess, who made off with a lot of money in very shady ways once the Soviet Union collapsed, and the supposedly capitalist experiment there turned out to be a complete disaster, and they just basically stripped away everything they could lay their hands on, right? Well-connected guys, basically either ex-security services or gangster types. So these billionaire oligarchs, who continuously get painted as these robber barons, how different would in reality our tech billionaires or dhando billionaires in the supposed free world be if the media actually had like 100% freedom to say what they wanted, if they actually reached that level of power where elected governments were essentially like little babies they could just knock around, right? Maybe we've not reached that stage yet, but like what if we do? Isn't it like human tendency for people to act in a very authoritarian dictatorial manner once that happens? So this is the problem statement, right? This is just to give you like a few examples, especially in India, it's quite worrying. You've seen like the kind of videos which end up going viral and which end up becoming popular on YouTube and all these streaming apps in India. It's generally some kind of naughty young girls dancing in suggestive poses, or it's some Bollywood masala clip, or some highly dramatic, emotionally nonsensical TV serial snippet, or you know or sometimes it's even these random UPSC teachers who have overnight become superstars, and if you actually listen to them for like more than 5 minutes, more than 90% of the time they're speaking absolute rubbish, like half baked knowledge, completely opinionated. I wouldn't even call them factoids, like let alone facts. They're not even like factoids. It's like utter trash. And I understand that they have to cater to a particular kind of syllabus, but it really looks like they believe what they say, and they think that there's some sort of geniuses who are doing like uh, the world a favor by providing them with this sacred infotainment. And people really think, and if you look at the comments on these kind of videos, people actually think that these guys are like demigods or something. And that's how impressionable they are. And this same kind of NPC behavior, if you go to the app store or something, or you go to Facebook, Twitter, other places, you look at the kind of apps people uh, end up downloading. Like on average, let's say lower middle class, working middle class person's phone, who might even be somewhat educated, you'll find like 5 or 6 different streaming apps, right? Again, some kind of suggestive, semi-erotic kind of content mixed in with masala comedy and drama and sasbo and all sorts of, like, you know we've literally got hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of these cheap knockoffs of TikTok, which I think will only work in a country like this. I don't think we export them to any other country, because I don't really think people are inclined to waste so much time over such rubbish in most other places. Or maybe like some places are like that, but they have, I guess, their own local versions of these things already. So, yeah, guys, and another thing which is quite perturbing is that you'll also notice that in terms of like tech innovation, tech startups, and whatnot, it's just like everyone's a fucking sheep. Like, you know, you go to the app store, and if you look at like Indian apps, you'll find 30 different Indian apps. Okay, all with like tens of millions or even hundreds of millions in the bank, trying to deliver medicines to your house. Why the fuck do we need 30 apps for that? I don't get that. They sell the same shit. Like 80% of the products are the same, right? You have like a dozen different apps sending bread and eggs and cold drink and like masala chai to your house. Like, why? Why do we have so many of these, like, copycat? Like, there is only going to eventually be like one Swiggy, or like maybe one Swiggy and one Zomato, and maybe max to max one more of them, right? It's good to have competition, but here that they're not really offering any new innovation, any new real in demand feature. It's just like copycat behavior, right? So yeah, and another example, teaching apps, they all do the same goddamn thing, right? There'll be some fat dude, or some fat woman who just has a bunch of degrees, doesn't really know much. She just opens a webcam, you know teaches the kid a bunch of BS over some app, makes her 40, 50 grand a month, and parents are happy to pay for that. So you have like 50 different apps which do just that, right? Give these aunties work from home jobs and give these parents the satisfaction that they've actually done something for their retardo kids. And that's where we are, right? It's pretty dystopian. So like, as far as the first part of the title goes, yeah, I think like most people are blindly and almost willingly, turning into serfs. They'll happily go along with what these tech companies say. They'll happily, support the latest IPL or even EPL team. They'll happily buy those jerseys. They'll happily go and watch the latest Marvel or some, you know new dude with a different shade of uh, wearing a different shade of cape, and with an even sadder and like darker backstory of how his uncle killed his dad, and then he became this, and that's his alter ego, and that's why he has to kill this villain who has a new, like, it's just bullshit, right? Even Hollywood, like, for that matter, like, Bollywood's a gone case anyways. So yeah, like, I think most people are headed in that direction. But then that's like 90, 95, 99% of the population. But do we really want to end up like that? Do we want to be those serfs, those neo feudal techno slavery victims, or do we want to be something else? Do we want to be at the other end of the spectrum? Do we want to be the people who actually utilize the, immense leverage, the immense potential which technology has provided us today to, safeguard our privacy, safeguard our individual sovereignty, right? I mean, if you just think about it, like, did we ever, like, before in history, like, have the ability to essentially make as many copies of nearly like 95, 96% of the books ever published on the earth, right? Obviously, like, I'm talking about certain piracy websites. I don't necessarily encourage that, but the ability is there, right? Like, so even if, let's say, a book gets banned, they can't effectively ban it. There's VPNs, there's all sorts of, websites with mirror links and mega upload style dumps, and then there's Tor and this and that. In a way, it's become very, very difficult also for governments to stop an individual who really wants to be sovereign, who really wants to be autonomous, right? Now you have crypto, right? Now, obviously, there are cryptocurrencies which are not very secure. There are hacking vulnerabilities. There are many centralized exchanges which will sell you to the devil as soon as they feel threatened, even once, right? All those problems do exist. I'm not denying that. But have we ever historically had the capability of even having like one single kind of money where you could just, like, let's say, memorize a 16 or, I don't know, 32 word phrase in your head, and you could, just with that phrase, you could travel anywhere in the world, and all you need is a basic computing device, and you could literally carry like almost unlimited sums of money with you, like that, like billions upon billions of dollars, right? So those of you who are a little familiar with crypto might know what I'm talking about. Like, your seed phrase essentially gives you that ability, right? So you can essentially, you don't even need to write it down. Like if you have like a decent enough memory, you can just memorize that combination of words in that particular order, which makes up your mnemonic seed phrase. And you know don't even take any luggage. Go in a t-shirt and shorts, take a flight to Helsinki or like Colombia, or I don't know, like Greenland or wherever, or Antarctica. Maybe not Antarctica, right? Just go there, land up there, go to go, go to some random, convenience, not convenience store, but some local electronic store chain. Get a simple laptop or something with whatever their version of some internet dongle or some cheap SIM card or something with 4G, 5G data. Go home, put in that phrase in whatever, some light wallet or some reasonably safe wallet, and voila, you've basically traveled half the world with like $100 million or even $1 billion, just by having that combination of words inside your head, and no one can stop you from doing that, right? We've never had that kind of power to protect our money, our individual autonomy like that, right? And you might, obviously there are going to be people who will misuse these abilities. There are going to be elements who will take advantage of technological progress like this to harm society, to harm other people, right? But overall, I think, if there was a greater willingness on the part of people to become aware, like the general population, the average Joe, who's just sitting around, doing goddamn cashback charrap on his UPI apps. If instead of just pissing away like all his time doing that, you know, maybe if he spent like 5% or 10% of that time, figuring out, okay, what is Ethereum, what is BSC, what are exchange coins, what is Monero, what is BAT. I'm not recommending any of these. Just random. I'm just taking random names right now, right? So, yeah, guys, this is just like one aspect. There is so much to it, right? There are so many browsers which have come up, which are specifically geared towards making sure that your data, your information is not tracked without your explicit consent, right? Which happens a lot more than you think. For example, you have Firefox nightly is fairly all right. I guess Brave is even better. Brave even gives you a little bit of basic attention tokens for watching some of their ads. So it gives you, like, it blocks your ads, plus it gives you a little bit of crypto and protects your privacy. So it gives you multiple benefits. So it's not perfect. Even Firefox is not perfect. I wish they had like a lot more add-ons. But it's a start, right? Yeah, you have DuckDuckGo. Like why don't more people know about DuckDuckGo? Why don't more people know about, let's say, other search engines? Like, I know Bing is shit, but I'm sure there are like emerging startups which have like privacy centric search engines. I'm sure there are a lot of extensions which can help out in this way. Why do so few people, like literally probably less than 5% of the people that I know, like in my young age group, you know, highly educated people, coming from pretty decent backgrounds, why do only like 4 or 5% of them use ad blockers? Why do only like maybe less than 10% of them, even at this point, own any form of crypto? Why are they so scared of it? Like, what's going to happen, right? I mean, even even if you look at Telegram, right? I just don't get it. Telegram, not only is it, equipped with much better encryption compared to WhatsApp. WhatsApp is complete trash, and WhatsApp, to be quite honest, if you're trying to use it on more than two devices, it's an absolute bloody nightmare, right? I've never had to face that issue with Telegram, right? And Telegram is not just like a small baby anymore. I know they kind of uh, did go, back on that initial promise of keeping it free forever, but that's how reality is, right? Like, you might have all these dreams and stuff, but when reality hits you, you can't keep everything free, right? Like, money what is the fuel which runs the world at the end of the day. So yeah, guys, like, Telegram, yes, as I was saying, Telegram has, I think, what, 600, 700 million people using it right now. Uh, that's like not 10%, but like what, 7 8% of the world population. I don't know what exactly is the demographic breakup between adults and like children who like probably can't use smartphones, but I'm sure we're soon approaching, like, let's say, 1/6, 1/5 of the entire world being on Telegram, even if they only use it, like, let's say, once a month or once in 2 or 3 months, right? That's really something, right? I've seen that growth, right? And with Telegram especially, that is something which makes me hopeful. That means that maybe Brave can get to that level one day. Maybe Monero and Ethereum and all these things can get to that level one day. Maybe we can, one day reach a point where the government cannot put a gun to your head and say, give me taxes, I won't give you roads, I won't give you anything. You are, an evil monster because, I don't know, 600 years ago your ancestor committed some uh, uh, atrocity apparently. So now you get to pay an additional 10% surcharge on top of the 30% you're paying. So yeah, I don't really fancy living in a world like that, and I'm afraid things are, as we've talked about a lot, things are moving in that direction. So especially again, I said I know I have said that I will try to cut down and limit the political stuff a bit, but guys, let's be honest here, like, who needs crypto? Who needs technological sovereignty? Who needs privacy? Who needs high tech individual autonomy the most? It's people like us, young savant men, productive men, upper caste men, men who are seen as the golden goose which needs to be strangled. Sorry for the rant at the end, but I really hope that I was able to say something which, you know, got at least a few people thinking. I'm sorry I didn't share the link at more places, but people keep on trickling in throughout the day, and I'm sure like a lot more people will end up watching this episode. I think this one was much better than the previous small test we had, and hopefully we'll keep you know having discussions which are more and more high quality, give each other inputs, teach each other something, and and be ready, because you know again, doom and gloom, dark clouds, they are a gathering. Okay guys, goodbye. Namaskar. Until next